Hey guys, I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and if you want a 4G Android QWERTY phone on Sprint, you used to be limited to the Epic. Not the case anymore. The HTC EVO Shift 4G is out on the market now. Even though it has an 800 MHz processor, it's a pretty happening device, and it goes head-to-head with the original EVO, but it has that physical QWERTY keyboard. We're going to pit it up in a dogfight between the other 4G Android device, the Samsung Epic 4G. So it's EVO Shift 4G, Samsung Epic 4G. Which one will win? Well, we'll find out in the dogfight. Special thanks to our friends at Best Buy Mobile. They've hooked us up with two of these, that's 4. You know, I read about phones. Math is not my strong suit. 4 devices for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway. When you go into Best Buy Mobile, you walk out working, so you can get one of these devices and they'll help you set it up. Enough of that. Which one will win? Samsung, HTC, Sense, TouchWiz, keyboard. Who knows? We'll find out starting right now. Sprint 4G lovers have another device to call their own now. You have the HTC EVO Shift 4G, which came out on the 9th. Some Best Buy Mobile customers were able to pick it up as early as the 6th. Then you have, of course, the EVO 4G and the Epic 4G. Now, the interesting thing about both of these is they have physical QWERTY keyboards. A few differences here and there. This one's obviously running HTC Sense, Android 2.2, whereas this is 2.1. But it's a miniature version of the EVO, but with a full QWERTY keyboard. Let's do a quick rundown of the specs. 800 MHz next generation Snapdragon processor, 3.6-inch display, HTC Sense UI, Android 2.2, 4-row physical QWERTY keyboard here, and you'll notice that the hinge is not a spring-loaded hinge like the Epic 4Gs. It is like the original Motorola Droid. You know, it's one of those things you love-hate. I actually prefer the hinge on the original Motorola Droid, just the hinge, that is. And the hinge like on the EVO Shift 4G, because I think it's much easier. There's nothing I can't stand more than when I feel that hinge. I'll be typing and I'll feel it pop up and pop back down. It just frustrates me. That's one of my random frustrations. I don't feel it with this one because the hinge is a little bit more firm. Anyway, 5 megapixel camera with a flash in the back, and then on the top you have your 3.5mm headphone jack, power button, micro USB charging port, and nothing on the right side. Down the Epic 4G. 1 GHz Hummingbird processor. It's one of the original Galaxy S devices that came out along with the Fascinate, the Captivate, and the Vibrant. 5 megapixel camera as well. Flash on this one, and on the right side you have your power button, camera shortcut button, volume rocker on your top, micro USB charging port with a sliding door, which, you know, I've always been a fan of that if you've watched my videos, and a 3.5mm headphone jack as well. So definitely on a 5-row QWERTY keyboard with some shortcuts on the side. So definitely can compete with each other and hold their own ground. It goes beyond just this one having Android 2.1 and this one having Android 2.2. The manufacturers have installed custom skins on both of these devices. This one's running not only 2.1, but it's running Samsung's TouchWiz user interface, which looks a lot like the iPhone. You can see the app slide, or the icon slide from left to right. And then you can see they're very colorful, and there's a theme behind each one, be it green, blue, black, whatever. It's just very colorful, and you see the bottom dock here that looks a lot like the iPhone. Not a huge Android influence, or less of an Android influence on this one versus a device like this. It's running Android 2.2, so it is a little bit newer version, but it's running HTC Sense user interface, and you can see on the bottom here, it's a little different. The top navigation bar, a little bit different versus one like this. You can see what's TouchWiz's, say that 3 times fast, their user interface looks like versus Sense. Neither one of those are what stock Android looks like. So you can see some differences between these across the board, but you can see when you open up the App Store here, the apps scroll up and down, so it's a little bit more of an Android-centric experience. Let's take a look here. Out of the box, you get Amazon MP3. It is Android 2.2, so you get app sharing, calendar, call history, camera, typical Android apps. Facebook is installed out of the box. Excuse me, Gmail, Google Search, Kindle installed, Internet, a couple of additional Google applications. News and weather widget, I'm a fan. HTC's Peep. And then the Sprint stuff. Sprint Football Live, Sprint Hotspot, Sprint Zone. And I guess they're not calling it Sprint Navigator anymore. Rather, it's Telenav GPS Navigator. But at this point, Google Maps is strong enough to really hold its own. So I don't know why you would need Telenav or whatever, Sprint Navigation, when you have Google Maps pre-installed on your device. So you have that on this one. Let's do a quick walkthrough of the Samsung Epic 4G. You have alarm, the typical Android applications. Asphalt 5, that's a game demo on there. Astro, which I've installed. Backgrounds, which I've installed. But you get calendar, Facebook, Gmail, Latitude, let's see, Maps, Market, Memo, which is a big touch. You know, for me, the biggest frustration, or one of the biggest frustrations on Android is that there's no memo pad out of the box on most of these devices. Samsung did include a memo pad on their Galaxy S line, and it's nice to see that in there. Minor thing, people are going to be like, why do you care? But it's just that one little thing that frustrated me. NASCAR Cup Mobile, Sprint Football, Sprint Hotspot, Sprint Navigation, Sprint TV, and Sprint Zone. So you get a few more Sprint pre-installed apps on this one, and then again, a few more Google things, YouTube, Google Talk, Think Free Office, which is a nice touch, and things of that nature. Now on the screen front, you have a 4-inch Super AMOLED display here. Absolutely beautiful display. Some say the color's a little bit washed out. I don't notice it as much on Android as I do on Windows Phone 7. It is bright, bright, bright on Windows Phone 7. But on this, I feel like the colors are pretty decent. And they're, you know, it's nice and clear and looks good. I just wish they'd update the dang thing to Android 2.2. On this one, you have a 3.6-inch display, regular display, no huge things here. It's not an AMOLED display, not a Retina display, not a Super AMOLED display, not a Super Plus, QHD. Fill in the blank with whatever high-resolution term you want to use, but it's just a regular 3.6-inch display here, and you have your capacitive buttons on the bottom. And this is another Android kind of issue or frustration for some. You have home, menu, back, and search, and then on this one you have menu, home, back, and search. So if you're coming from one Android device to the other, you never quite know if the buttons on the bottom are going to be the same. You have 7 home screens on each one of these devices. See here, scroll between those two. And they scroll differently, and the apps or the widgets look slightly different as well. I have to give HTC the win here. While I would give the Epic 4G the win in the screen department, I've got to give HTC the win in terms of having fantastic, absolutely fantastic apps. I love Sense's apps. So you get the stock Android apps, but you also get, or stock widgets, I don't know why I'm saying apps, stock HTC widgets, or Android widgets, and then you get the HTC widgets as well. Bookmarks, calculator, calendar, all HTC, but then you can use, if you want to look at the Android calendar, you can choose between the Android version of the calendar widget or the HTC version. You can see here, for example, what I just deleted, that's the HTC version. You can see the Android version as well. So it's nice for those people that are coming from stock Android or TouchWiz or MotoBlur that didn't really like the widgets. I'd say take a look at HTC's because they're very clean, they're very polished, and I think they're fantastic. And you can scroll up and down and you see clock, HTC, and you can tell at the bottom which one's which. So FriendStream, obviously HTC. You can get into messages, which are HTC as well. Add the messaging widget where you can see them one by one. You can scroll back over and see them in kind of an index card format. So pretty cool on that front. You do get a few on TouchWiz as well, but you don't get as many, and I don't think they're a little bubbly for me at least. Let's go to Samsung widgets. You can see AccuWeather clock, buddies. Now let's look at the AccuWeather clock just for example. Let's see what it looks like. I'm trying to get rid of saying on that front because I say that a lot in videos. Tell me if you can help me think of another phrase that I should use a lot besides on that front. Let me know. So I can look up Charlotte, for example. Bring up the weather, Charlotte, North Carolina. And you can see, bam, it brings it up. So that's not a bad widget. When you get into kind of the social aggregation widgets like friend feeds and updates, you can see kind of pink, kind of bubbly. You know, it's just not as clean and good looking to me as the Sense widgets are. But you do have those, and you have stock Android widgets as well to choose from if you so desire. Analog clock, Facebook, Google Voice settings, which is a program I've installed. It doesn't come out of the box on Android 2.1. Android Market, of course, all of the stuff that we've seen on this one. You have the option on this one as well, but they're just categorized a little bit differently. Here they're categorized as separate Samsung versus Android widgets. On this one they're categorized, all in one, but you can see Android versus HTC. So take a look at the keyboards on these phones, both virtual and physical. And if you saw me type on this one when I was doing the search for weather, you saw that wasn't exactly the Android keyboard. I've installed the MotoBlur or the Motorola multi-touch keyboard on the Epic 4G because it's one of my favorites. So it's just a testament that if you're comfortable, I don't recommend it for newbies, and of course PhoneDog can't hold PhoneDog liable for any of this, but there are plenty of keyboard options both in the market and outside of the market if you so desire to switch it up. HTC Sense is one of my favorite on-screen QWERTY keyboards. But let's take a look at the physical first. Let's see, 4-row physical QWERTY keyboard, D-pad down here. I like the fact that they've kept the spacebar separate from the letters. It's just easier to type on. And they've done a pretty good job of keeping it, for the most part, computer-like. So, you know, it's easy. It's a natural transition between your computer and your phone keyboard. So let's see. What is the Quick Brown Fox doing? The Quick Brown Fox should be, and I'm pulling this from a YouTube comment the other day, the Quick Brown Fox should be on payroll. The Quick Brown Fox should be on payroll. Somebody wrote me the other day on YouTube, and they're like, you know, the Quick Brown Fox should be on payroll. Well, you're probably right, because I do use him in a lot of videos. We need to come up with something else, like the small brown or the small black skunk or something like that. That's going to be my new one. We're going to use that one for a while, and then I'll have to put him on payroll. And you can see, we'll scroll down here. This is the HTC keyboard. You know, I was a little concerned at first coming from the EVO's 4.3-inch display down to 3.6. You know, this is like incredible, Droid incredible size. And, you know, I've been pretty pleased with the keyboard. Despite the smaller display, it's not bad at all. The small black skunk jumped into the trash and ate some of it. So, you know, I mean, very quick, very easy to type on. Out of the stock ones that come with the devices, it's a tie for me between Motorola's multi-touch keyboard and an HTC Sense. But you can see the small black skunk jumped into the trash and ate some of it. Very quick, very easy to type on. And then you have, if you want to attach music, contacts, calendar appointments, etc., you can do that. And when you're ready to go and have a contact in there, you can hit send. Let's take a look at the Samsung Epic 4G. We'll go into messaging. And one thing I like about the, and there are a lot of little quirks about the Galaxy S line that I like on each one of these devices. This one, the coolest little quirk is they kept the stock Android app. If you look at like this versus the Fascinate on Verizon or the Vibrant on T-Mobile, they went with this kind of like Samsung iPhone-y looking messaging app. And this is the stock, at least right here, this is the stock Android application. Now, word on the street is that changes. Actually, that's not word on the street. I'm running 2.2 on one of my test Epics, and they changed this over to the Samsung. So you may not have it for very long, but you still do. Motorola multi-touch keyboard, I've installed that, but let's see what you actually get out of the box. You get swipe and the Android keyboard right now. Supposedly Samsung has a keyboard coming in Android 2.2, but you know, the, what is it again? The small black skunk, what I call it? Small black skunk navigated to the bar for a beer. So you have the small black skunk navigated to the bar for a beer. It's a stock Android keyboard that's in 2.1 and 2.2, not the gingerbread keyboard. And then you have your physical QWERTY as well. Now, if you've heard me talk about any videos, this is one of my favorite physical QWERTYs on the market. The only one I think that's better than it is probably the G2, the T-Mobile G2. But these are fantastic keys. You can see they're not raised at all any more than, you know, actually being raised off the plastic, but they're island keys. It's a love-hate thing. Island keys usually aren't my favorite, but you have this nice D-pad here, and they're spaced enough where it's easy to type. So, you know. And it's funny because 2 years ago I would have sworn by my my physical keyboard, but now I think I'm a little better at on-screen keyboard. So you have hello there, how are you doing? And you know, type pretty quickly, and then you have your Android shortcut buttons that translate up here to the capacitive buttons on the left and on the right. So, you know, and a built-in smiley face because, you know, everything's happy in the world. So everything should be happy in the world. So it's nice that that's on there, and you have a nice 5-row QWERTY keyboard with an independent space bar or independent space row.